And that brings us to the main event now, which goes down in the lightweight division, and it is for the BMF Championship, where we have Max Blessed Holloway coming in at minus 225, going up against Charles Dobronx Oliveira, who comes in at plus 190. Now, Holloway is coming off of a decision win over Dustin Poirier, a fight which was also for the BMF title, but was also the retirement fight for Dustin Poirier, as he got to fight in his home state of Louisiana. Unfortunately, he couldn't have much success against Holloway, who had his number that night and finally got one over Dustin Poirier in their third fight together. But we know what Holloway's good at, right? Volume striking, good boxing, insane durability, outside of the fact that he got knocked out by Ilia Topuria, a guy that was able to knock out an elephant if he could. But Holloway, very skilled, still 34 years old, still in the prime of his career, a guy that is more than guaranteed to bring the fireworks and bring a fight of the night type experience to the live viewing crowd. And I think that's why the UFC has once again given him this opportunity. He's one of the most popular fighters on the roster, and he's obviously one of the more entertaining fighters as well. In terms of his defensive grappling game, we don't see it often get challenged. I believe Topuria had taken him down. There's been a couple fights where not a lot of guys have really been able to take him to the ground and hold him there. That's kind of the issue, right? We don't know what to expect with his defensive grappling game when he's going up against a heavy grappler or a guy that's going to be looking to attack with submissions as much as his opponent will this weekend. But by all accounts, his defensive grappling has looked good enough. He's often able to force opponents to strike with him. And even though he's not this crazy one-punch knockout specialist, he's still a guy that can go out there and beat you with 1,000 cuts. And that's kind of his approach more often than not. Now, he's going up against Charles Dobronx Oliveira, who is looking to build upon, I believe it was an October victory that he had over Mateusz Gamrot, who came in on short notice for an injured Rafael Fiziev. That night, Charles Oliveira was able to halt all of Gamrot's grappling approaches and then just butcher him on the feet until he eventually got the back of Gamrot and forced him to tap in the second round of that fight. That allowed Oliveira to bounce back after getting knocked out at the hands of Ilia Topuria in a vacant lightweight scrap, where Topuria was able to win the title by knocking Oliveira out in the first round of that fight. Now, Oliveira is one of those guys that really made a name for himself after COVID. Going into COVID or just before COVID, he was actually the last main event before COVID hit when he ended up submitting Kevin Lee. But, prior to that fight, he was seen as a guy that was an entertaining grappler, but a guy that would often quit. But he really made a name for himself during COVID, got to the point where he became the undisputed champion, beat some names that not many people expected him to beat, and he just showcased that his striking game was far evolved from what he had showcased earlier on in his career. Usually he just goes to his grappling, goes to his jiu-jitsu, and he's a guy that would often, secure those submissions and get finishes. He holds a few UFC records, including 21 UFC finishes. He has the most submission wins at 17. He has the most fight night bonuses as well at 21, and he is tied in second with the most UFC wins at 24. He used to be a guy that had said, when the going gets tough, he's going to quit. But he's no longer that guy. He is a guy that will bring it from minute one to, however long it takes. He's not a guy that often goes to the scorecards. So the fact that he went to his scorecards against both Arman Tsarukyan and Michael Chandler kind of goes to show that he can go into deep water if he needs to. But he is a guy that wants to implement his Muay Thai, his nasty kicks, get the fight into the grappling realm, and then eventually try to apply his submission game. This is such an intriguing and weird matchup, right? You got Holloway's finesse and his output-heavy boxing approach against the Muay Thai aggression of Oliveira and the BJJ approach that he brings. Quickly, obviously, we need to mention that this is a rematch of a fight that took place back in August of 2015, the only UFC event ever held in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan at the time, and it only lasted about a minute and a half. It was somewhat competitive or so, but it was clearly Holloway landing a little bit more effective damage. And then unfortunately, Oliveira suffered some sort of neck and shoulder injury after going for a takedown, and that halted the fight a minute and a half into it. So very weird circumstance there, but considering it's been over 10 years, these guys have built an amazing legacy for each other, for themselves. And now here they are throwing down once again past, their championship reigns. Very excited for it. Ultimately, I end up on the Max Holloway side of things. I feel like he should be able to stop the grappling of Oliveira. I think we'll see good submission defense from him when he inevitably finds himself in some compromising spots. And then he's going to start chipping away at Oliveira on the feet. I think for Oliveira to win, he needs to implement a kick-heavy game and try to slow Holloway down that way. And then maybe he can open up some takedown opportunities from there. But I think Holloway walks him down, keeps the jab in his face, starts landing some big shots. I think he hurts Oliveira a few times. But ultimately, I think Holloway eventually wins this fight on the scorecards after a competitive battle, which is why it's hard for me to get behind him at minus 225. I would put him closer to minus 150, given the danger that the dangers that Oliveira presents with the many ways that he could possibly finish this fight. Obviously, the biggest one being by submission, but I think Holloway will do a good enough job in terms of keeping this fight away from the grappling realm and eventually just walking Oliveira down, landing his output, landing his volume. He might be able to knock Oliveira out as well. It's absolutely possible. But I'm thinking with Oliveira initiating the grappling here and there, it's going to eat time off the clock, and that will lead to just Holloway outpointing him and winning this on the scorecards, and still BMF champion Max Blessed Holloway.